airport. It was just a few weeks ago, actually, that I went through this airport on my journey to Israel. You know, when I went through the terminal, checked my bags, and then the first thing that I had to do was go through security, as many of you have done on your trips as well. And so I went through security fine, and that's, you know, where you unpack your bag, your carry-on, and everything you brought with you. You go through the scanners, they x-ray it, and essentially what they're doing is they're looking at me and deciding if I'm a threat. And if I'm a high enough threat, they're not going to let me on that plane. If I'd brought a gun or a knife or something, I'm not going anywhere. And there's some security for those of us who have done some traveling, knowing that they take their threats seriously at an airport. Well, as I got in the airport system, I assumed that all was done and I was clear to go until I got off the plane in Tel Aviv. But when I got to the Philadelphia airport, I got to the international gate and got up to my gate that had the flight going to Tel Aviv on it, where it was departing from, and I learned that I wasn't through being assessed. The Israeli government had its own security right there at their own gate for their planes. And so I went through the whole procedure again, but this time it was a little bit more detailed. It was the x-ray and checking every bag a little closer. And then once you even got into the gate, there were guards there with M16s on their backs. They were taking the whole environment as a potential threat. They were assessing us even after we got past the security check. Even down the runway, the ramp onto the plane, there were guards that were armed, and it was obvious that we were headed to a place that took its threats very, very seriously. There's a lot of people in Louisiana and Arkansas right now. You can probably hear the wind as I'm out here as Hurricane Ivan has just come ashore last night down in Louisiana. And a lot of people down there were taking that threat very seriously. And even some of us up here kind of watching, how much rain are we going to get? Is there really a threat of flooding? If so, where's it going to be? And not many of us here in Little Rock area are taking that, you know, with too much worry. However, if they had said this was a Hurricane 5 instead of a Hurricane 1, and it's still going to be a Hurricane 3 by the time it gets to central Arkansas, we'd be taking that threat a little bit more seriously. In fact, it would probably prompt us to action. There's probably some action we would take based on that possibility, as those in southern Louisiana right now are evacuating some low-lying areas as the floods rise a little bit down there. You see, when threats become real to us, that's when we're moved to action. Just like you have, some of you have an alarm system on your house to assess the threat, and you've taken action based on, you know, the number of burglaries in your neighborhood, or you've taken out insurance because you've seen car wrecks and other drivers as threats, and so you've taken action to mediate some of those risks and those threats that you have. I wonder, though, sometimes how often we take seriously the threats to our faith. I don't think it takes a whole lot of convincing to realize that our culture itself has some threats associated with it when it comes to our faith, whether that's in the form of temptation or influence or alternate worldviews. It could probably be described a lot of different ways. When God brought the Israelites out of Egypt, when they were doing their own traveling, going to the land of Israel themselves, he outlined the threats that were waiting on them, and God did the assessing. He said, when you go out into the land and you drive out this kingdom and those people and that army, be careful. There's going to be a threat to you, not only physically, which I'll take care of because I'm giving you the land, but there's going to be a threat culturally. You're going to be tempted to follow their gods and worship the way they worship and be, you know, tolerant of the culture. But as you read the book of the Kings and the Chronicles, one thing you begin to realize is that God was right when he first warned them. The greatest threat to their faith in him wasn't the culture. It really wasn't the kingdoms around, though there was certainly a degree of threat there. The greatest threat to their faith was much closer to home, as is ours. I'll see you Sunday morning at Cornerstone, where we do a faith threat assessment. Have a great week.